Welcome to this AQA GCSE Sociology revision blast. Today we're focusing on education and marketisation, which is part of paper 1. We're going to kick off proceedings today with a round of altered vowels. So each of the key phrases you will see have had their vowels changed and swapped to an alternative. Can you work out the key phrase? Off we go. Here's our first one. Hopefully it's a relatively easy one to get you started. And in fact, lots of you will attend one of these. Okay, let's reveal the answer. It is a multi-academy trust. So a multi-academy trust is a chain that runs many schools across an area. Some of these are enormous. They are quite often run like big businesses. The idea here is to save a little bit of money. It's supposed to improve standards, but they have been a bit hit and miss depending on where they are and who they are run by. Number 2. Okay, what do we think? So this is really important in the eyes of parents, this one. Have we worked it out? Let's reveal. It is league tables. So every single year there are league tables published showing the performance of local schools. So parents can make comparisons. They can choose the best schools for their students to attend. And the league tables will show things like GCSE results. It will show SATs results, all sorts of things. Number 3. Okay, this is quite tricky. It is something that you will all be familiar with. I think the vowels changing have made it quite hard. And it's something that schools fear. Let's have a look. It is that Ofsted report. So every few years, schools will get inspected by Ofsted. You will probably have been aware of this. The inspectors come in for a couple of days and they make a judgment on the school. And this can have a big impact on sort of future numbers and obviously staff morale and all sorts. Number 4. So hopefully the second word is fairly obvious, but what's the first one? Okay, let's reveal. Independent schools. These are fee-paying schools, also known as private schools. So some sociologists don't really like independent schools and they feel that they widen the class divide. Number 4. Okay, we have another type of school here. So what have we got? We have got grammar schools. So these are free to attend, but they are selective. So in order to get into a grammar school, you have to sit the 11 plus. And they are not available everywhere. So there are some counties in the country where there are quite a few grammar schools still, but there are others where there are none. And they're part of the old tripartite system, which was decades old, where you either went to a grammar school or you went to a technical college or you went to the secondary modern. And grammar schools are often criticised as they are seen as creaming off the best students, so therefore their exam results are always higher. Number 6. Okay, so this is linked to league tables and Ofsted reports that we have just talked about. Yeah, we have parental choice. So parents making a decision about where to send their children for the best education rather than just sending them to the nearest school. Okay, let's do our next one. So number 7, most of you watching probably attend one of these. Okay, these are state schools, also known as comprehensive schools. They are not fee-paying, they are not selective, and they are most of the schools across the UK. Number 7. Let's reveal. It is catchment area. So the catchment area is the area served by a school. A few decades ago, every single person would have gone to their catchment area school, regardless. Much more recently, there's been a trend away from catchment areas, so they're not seen as quite so important. Parents are willing to send their children out of the catchment if it means that they're going to get a better education. But also, you cannot be guaranteed a place in your catchment area anymore. So even if you move into an area served by a particular school, specifically because you want your children to attend that school, if that school is oversubscribed, then you may have to then take your child elsewhere. And that's becoming more and more of an issue. Right, number 9. These are fairly recent type of schools. Okay, these are free schools, so they were set up about a decade or so ago now. And it meant that pretty much anybody could set up a school, so a group of parents could if they had got enough backing and funding and all sorts. They are really controversial because they do take funding away from existing schools, but they can also make existing schools improve their own standards in order to retain their students. So they have had a good impact in some places, in other places not so much. But again, like I said, very controversial because they took away a lot of funding and they were built usually in areas that did not need additional school places. And our last one is this one here. And again, lots of you will have attended one of these. You may have helped out at one of these. What do we think this one is? It is open evening. So open evening is where the school puts on like a big show trying to get those parents in. So it's all about advertising your school in the best possible light. So when the parents have wandered around, they have a really good view of what that school is like and they want to send their children there. Okay, well done if you got all 10. Let's move on to another letters-based game. This time we're doing a conundrum. So we have got key phrases that have been rearranged. You've got 30 seconds to work out what they are. Let's go. Okay, have you worked out what this one is? It is competition. So a key part of marketisation of education is the idea of competition. So students are being drawn in by certain schools. So this idea of competing for students. You want the parents to send their students to your school because you're no longer guaranteed all the children that live in your catchment area. So that's why we have these big open evenings. It's become much more of an event. Maybe 20 years ago, it would just be wandering around the school, having a look at some examples of work. Now they can be like huge corporate affairs to try and draw people in through the doors. Okay, our second and last conundrum is... Okay, have we worked this one out? This is parentocracy. So the idea here is that a child's education must conform to the wealth and wishes of the parents rather than the abilities and efforts of the pupil. So we're kind of thinking about here parents being in charge of the education system rather than schools. And again, it's linked to that whole idea of marketisation. So parents being given much more choice over their children's education than they would have had previously. Right, we're going to move on to a round of true or false now. We have got 8 statements to have a look at. The first one is Ball, Bow and Gertwitz's 1994 study was called Market Forces and Parental Choice. Is this true or false? Let's reveal. It is true. Well done if you got that right. Number 2. The 1988 Education Reform Act led to the introduction of school league tables. Is this true or false? It is true. Okay, number 3. League tables are a fair method of comparing all schools. Is this true or false? What do we think? Let's reveal. It is false. So many feel they are completely unfair because lots of schools have, higher budgets, more resources. Some of them are in different catchments, so the starting point of those students may be a lot lower. They're not seen as fair. 3. Students have to attend their local catchment school. True or false? If you were listening a minute ago, this should be nice and easy. It is false. So again, parental choice means they no longer have to do that. 5. Middle class parents have an advantage in the marketisation process. Is this true or false? Let's reveal. It is true. So, for example, they might be able to afford to move into a better catchment area. They might be able to afford to take their students out of the local school and pay for transport to a school a bit further away. All sorts of things there. Okay, number 6. Middle class pupils often find themselves in undersubscribed and underfunded schools. Is this true or false? Let's reveal. It is false. Some of them will, but generally they won't. It is more likely to be your working class pupils that end up at the undersubscribed and underfunded schools. Number 7. Middle class parents take a greater interest in their children's education than working class parents. Is this true or false? Let's reveal. It is false. Many believe it is true, but it is a big stereotype. There are lots of working class parents that take a huge interest in their children's education because they obviously want their children to do well, particularly if they're struggling themselves and they want their children to have a better life than they did. Right, last one. Pupil premium funding enables schools to invest money into activities that benefit children from low-income families. Is this true or not? Let's reveal. It is true. So students from low-income families will receive a bit more funding into school, and this might be able to buy things like revision materials that other students are having to pay for themselves, or it might put money towards school trips. It might be spent on running interventions that will have an impact on those children from low-income families. So the idea here is that we're trying to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor in school, and when there are certain students that are suffering from material deprivation, which has an impact on how well they do, pupil premium funding tries to address that. Right, we're going to now move on to a Give Me 3 activity. We're looking for 3 issues with school league tables. You've got 30 seconds. Okay, let's have a look at what you've come up with. So we could have house prices in certain catchment areas become unaffordable. Schools with lower results fail to attract pupils and staff, so they sort of enter a downward spiral. And there's too much focus on exams over everything else, which obviously means that we then don't provide students with a rounded education. Okay, we're going to move on to a scramble sentences activity. On the screen, you have got 6 sentences. These have all been scrambled up. We need you to rearrange them to write the perfect paragraph explaining what happens when schools fail to attract enough students. So what we need you to do is to pause the video and read through the statements. Once you read through them, have a think about what order they should go in. Note down the numbers. Once you're happy with your order, unpause the video and we will see whether you are correct. Good luck. If you haven't paused already, please do so because we are about to reveal the order. Okay, let's have a look. So, at the top, a school attracts fewer students so admissions drop, leaving spaces unfilled. Schools receive a set amount of funding per student, so if there are fewer students, then there will be less money going into the school budget. The school has to address a budget shortfall through making cuts, such as larger class sizes, offering a smaller range of courses, and not buying textbooks. Larger class sizes mean students get less individual attention, and less course choice means that some students end up taking qualifications not suited to them. Larger class sizes and students on the wrong courses and a lack of resources puts extra pressure on teachers. This can lead to high turnover of staff and a lack of consistency for classes. This affects achievement and results drop. A few years of declining results mean that the school gains a reputation as a low-performing school, which is hard to shake off. Did you get those in the correct order? If you did, well done. Right, last activity. We're going to play word association. You have got 60 seconds to find words or phrases associated with the word below, each starting with a letter from that word. So we're doing an acrostic. If a letter is repeated, then you must find an alternative word. Off you go. Okay, let's see how you got on. So these are some of the words that you could have had. So we've got comprehensivisation, which is very difficult to say actually, but it's the idea of turning to the comprehensive system that we have now. Ofsted, Marketisation, parentocracy, we've got the Education Reform Act of 1988, the tripartite system that we mentioned earlier, which is an old system of grammar schools, technical schools and secondary modern, ideal pupil, which is all about labelling, we've got tuition fees, ideology, OECD ranking, so that's sort of an educational ranking, and then we have the national curriculum. Well done for getting to the end of the revision blast. We have covered lots of content about education and marketisation. Hopefully it's made you feel a little bit better about the education content in paper 1, and all is left from me is to wish you the very best of luck in both of your exams. Please make sure that you have a look at the revision blast playlist because we have got these for all of the topics that you will study.